Hey, Joe here from Home Studio Corner. I want to talk about mixing today. Specifically, I want to show you how I begin every mix that I do. You may think, how can you begin every mix the same way? Every mix could be totally different, and that's true. On the journey of mixing, it'll go all over the place depending on the song, but I really do start almost every mix with the same process and procedure, and it helps me get started on the right foot. So let's jump into Studio One, and I'll show you a few things. For the purpose of this video, let's assume that you are starting from scratch. You've got a folder full of tracks like this, and you are bringing them into a brand new session. Now, if you recorded everything and you already have it in a session, that's totally fine. I don't think you need to export it out and then re-import it into a blank new session unless you just like working that way. But this is kind of starting from scratch how I approach things. You can do this in any DAW that you work on. I'll be showing, obviously, Studio One because that is my DAW. So mix setup is the name of this song, and we're gonna go use my mix template, which is set to 48/24. We'll set it to bars and beats. Song length is probably a little longer than that. We'll leave it for now. And the tempo of the song is, I believe, 132 BPM. So let's do that now. And it is in 4/4. We're gonna use my song Fighter from my EP I released last year. So as you can see, as my template loads, it is already got a bunch of stuff in it. Specifically, I've got a bunch of buses, these red tracks here, for the types of buses that I usually have in a mix. Drums, bass, electrics, acoustics, keys, vocals, background vocals. I also have several effects. These are set up as auxiliary tracks that I can use the sends from a given track in my session to send it out to one of these. So these are effects that I found over the years. I tend to go back to these over and over. So I decided a while back, why don't I just import them into my mixing template, and then they're right there. So if I'm working on a guitar and I think it needs a great spring reverb sound, boom, it's right there. As opposed to me having to find the plugin, set up the send and the return. It doesn't use up a lot of processing power to have these sitting here waiting for me, and so that's what I do. So I've got a plate reverb, a room reverb, plate reverb, room reverb, spring reverb, then a slapback delay, a quarter note delay, and a half note delay using different delay plugins that I like. Do I use all of these in a mix? No, of course not. But I end up using a handful in every mix, and so I keep it this way. The great thing about using a template like this, if you change things and you evolve your workflow, you can always change how you set up your template, save it as a new template, and that's your new starting point moving forward. Another thing you may notice is I have the fat channel engaged on every channel, which just has a Neve style EQ and a compressor ready to go. It's not set to anything, but they're just there waiting for me to use them. It saves me a little extra time as well. You may notice, if you've watched any of my videos, I like to route everything through a bus. So everything's going to go through one of these red buses. If I need more buses or less buses, I can adjust those, but everything goes through something. And then I process my master fader and these buses, usually first in the mix, which what we call backwards mixing or top-down mixing. And then I go back from there to the individual channels. But that's neither here nor there. We're talking about mix setup. So let's make this nice and clean, blank slate, and let's bring the tracks in. Drag and drop, and I'm going to hit save and fast forward the video while it copies all these files over. Okay, all the tracks are copied into my session, and they are here waiting for me to do something with them. Now, this is the part that if you and I had an assistant, we would have them do everything in this video. Import the files, organize the files, do all that stuff. That's all well and good, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say that you don't have an assistant. Neither do I. So we're going to do this ourselves. I like to do this process on a day other than the day I'm mixing the song, because what we're doing here is very mathematical. It's very just organization and nerdy. So I tend to like to do this on, say, the end of a Thursday if I'm going to mix this on Friday. So I'll take the last 30 minutes, hour of the day to get the mix prepped and ready for me to come in and just start moving faders on the following day. When I can, I like to lump creative work together and have it a little bit separate from more nerdy administrative work. So what is the nerdy administrative work we're going to do? We're going to organize these, obviously get the drums together, the guitars together. You can see there's some loop files here. There's some random files down here, a few keyboards, a lot of different percussion stuff. And then up here, AG acoustic guitar, EG electric guitar, some harmonies, just kind of all over the place, right? Right now they're in alphabetical order. I need them to be in an order that makes sense. I will also color coordinate them, and then we'll route them to their individual buses. All of this will get me ready, almost ready to start mixing. So I'm going to do that now. I'll fast forward the video. You don't have to sit here through this while I do this part. It's just organizational stuff, mostly personal preference, but I'll come back and show you what I did once I'm done.
Then maybe I'm doing this thing right.
Okay, I've got them organized top to bottom like I like them. Just so you can see what I do, I like to put any percussion and drums at the top. Whether one's above the other, I don't really care. For me, the loop is what begins the song, so that's going to be at the very top. So all of these loop tracks are here, and then there's more loops here. The slurp, which sometimes you just got to go in and listen to the individual track. That's literally what you may think it sounds like. As silly as it is, I recorded this. It's just me going twice in stereo to add to the end of the song where there was this like reverse cymbal swell sort of thing. So I'm going to count that as percussion. Another cymbal swell is percussion. Now my drums are here. Bass is here. Electric. Let me zoom in a little bit. All the drums are together. Bass is here. Electrics, acoustic, keyboard. There's just one keyboard track. Lead vocal, and then harmony and background vocals. So that is how I've got it set up thus far. In fact, actually, I'm going to take these loops up here, loops 3 through 9, are actually background vocals that I've worked into a loop. I'm going to put them down here with the other background vocals. Loops 1 and 2 are more like mouth percussion that should stay up here with the loop tracks. So now I'm going to color coordinate them so that I can look visually and see drums are here, bass is here, guitars are here. Okay, let's do that now.
But if this all voices.
Okay, you may note, other than soloing and zooming in on certain tracks just to make sure we understand what they are, I've essentially not listened to the song at all. That's what I meant about this being a very administrative task and not really creative. But it looks much more organized. I can see things and they're grouped together in a way that makes sense. So as I move forward mixing, I can find things more easily when I'm looking on the screen. Final piece of the puzzle is to send these to their proper buses. So I'm going to send the loops and the drums all to my drum bus. Boom. I'm going to send the bass track to the bass bus. Now there's only one bass. Why would you do that? Because I still like to have everything going through my buses on the far right-hand side of my session, which I need to move these over because they're not where they should be. Boink. Even if there's one bass, I still like to have it going to a bass bus. That way, if I duplicate the bass and add distortion, which is something I do regularly, they're still both going through a single fader, which I like. And you'll see that for the keys as well. Electric guitars here are going to go to my electric guitar bus. Acoustic, there's only one acoustic. We're going to route it to the bus for consistency's sake. There's only one keyboard part. We'll route that to the keyboard bus. It just takes an extra 2 seconds to do it, and now I've got all my everything going through those red faders on the end. Vocal and harmony are going to go to the vocal bus. I tend to like to process those together, or at least try to do that, and then see how that works. And then all these echoes and loops, the background vocal stuff, are going to a background vocal bus. So now if I pull down these faders over here and hit play, you don't hear anything because everything's coming through those faders over there. Okay. Now I can start my mix. But there's one more step that I like to do on every mix that I do. Once I've done this kind of nerdy work, there's one more nerdy piece to this, and I'll show that to you in the next video. Doesn't get much nerdier than this, but it's work that needs to be done, and it makes the whole rest of the session go smoother when everything's a little organized, a little color coordinated, a little where we all need it to be. If you want more practice with mixing, you need to check out Dueling Mixes if you haven't already. It's at duelingmixes.com, and you can get a free 14-day trial and check it out and see if it's right for you. It's a place where you can get tons of tracks to mix, tons of advice on how to get better at mixing, engage in a community of people like you who also love to mix, and there's a coaching call where Graham Cochran and I answer your questions every month. Super fun. You should definitely check it out. In the meantime, I'll see you around.
Get back up and fight.